Coconut jam, also known as kaya, is a classic high-sugar coconut food product that is popular as a bread spread among Malaysians. The name kaya was probably given by the Malays, referring to it as seri kaya. Kaya also means wealthy in Malay, that refers to its rich in texture. So, how kaya was made? Popular local kaya is made by processing eggs, sugar and coconut milk and may contain edible starch. It is concentrated due to inconsistent proportions, producing semi-solid final product with a light to dark brown in colors. Since kaya is one of the most typical at-home breakfasts for Malaysians, there are many popular brands of kaya produced in Malaysia. In order to achieve our objective to determine the most preferred coconut jams among consumers in Malaysia, a hedonic test was conducted. 3 popular coconut jam brands were chosen, which are Gardenia, Nona and Yos. The aim of the test is to observe each attribute, which are appearance, color, texture, aroma and taste. Hypothesis. The null hypothesis for this test is all panelists have a similar degree of acceptability of all 3 popular coconut jam in all tested attributes. On the other hand, the alternative hypothesis for this test is not all panelists have a similar degree of acceptability of all 3 popular coconut jam in all tested attributes.
We move to the method or preparing the sample. So first, as the carrier to the coconut jam, we cut the white bread to the square shape. We fill 5 ml coconut jam sample from the 3 brands into the plastic container. After that, we code the sample with the random code number on the container. Next, all the materials and samples that has prepared being organized before we serve to the panelists. Now, we are ready to serve to the panelists the sample with a spoon, a glass of water, a pen, and the score sheets. Lastly, the panelists start to evaluate the samples.
Next, we will move to the results and discussion. Data analysis was carried out by using Minitab 15 software. As the samples are more than 2, the raw data collected through written ballot from the score sheet was then statistically analyzed using analysis of variance, one-way ANOVA, to see if there were any statistical differences at p less than 0.05. Two case tests was followed after we did the ANOVA to see whether statistical differences between the means existed. All the test results were shown as means. For appearance attribute, ANOVA analysis results showed that there were significant differences in the appearance of coconut jam in the 3 samples. This is indicated by the significance p-value of 0.037, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, the null hypothesis is rejected. It can be concluded that the panelists have the highest preference on sample B, which is from Nona brand, and have the least interest on sample C, which is from the Yos brand. This is the ANOVA data we obtained for the second attribute, which is the color of the coconut jam from the Minitab 15 software. For the color attribute of coconut jam, ANOVA analysis results showed that there were significant differences in the color of the three samples. This is indicated by the significance p-value of 0.025, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, the null hypothesis is rejected. It can be concluded that the panelists have the highest preference on sample B, which is from Nona brand, and have the least interest on sample C, which is from the Yos brand.
For the texture attribute for 3 samples brand of coconut jam, the calculated p-value is 0.610, which is higher than 0.05. Therefore, the decision is not to reject the null hypothesis. This result indicates that there is no significant difference between the texture of coconut jam in sample A, B, and C. It can be also concluded that the panelists have the highest preference on sample A, which is from Gardenia brand, and have least interest on sample C, which is from Yos brand for the texture attribute. Next, for the aroma between the 3 samples brand, the result shows that there is significant differences in the aroma of coconut jam between the 3 samples. The null hypothesis is rejected. This is because of the p-value of aroma attributes between the 3 samples brand is 0.035, which is less than 0.05. The panelists have high preferences in terms of aroma in sample A, which is from Gardenia brand, and have least preferences on sample C, which is from Yos brand. For the test attribute, the p-value obtained from the analysis of variance is 0.000, which is less than 0.05. The decision is to reject the null hypothesis. There is enough evidence to conclude that there is significant difference in the taste of coconut jam in sample A as much as in sample B and sample C. The panelists also have high preferences in sample A, similar with the texture and aroma attributes, which is from the Gardenia brand, and have least interest on sample C, which is from Yos brand for the test attribute.
Lastly is for the overall acceptability of coconut jam according to their brands. From analysis of variance, we can see that there were significant differences in the overall acceptability of coconut jam in sample A as much as in sample B and sample C. This is indicated by the p-value of 0.025, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, the null hypothesis that states that the degree of acceptance of 3 different coconut jam by panelists would be the same is rejected. From the interval point, it can be concluded that the most preferred coconut jam is sample A, which is from Gardenia brand, and they have the least interest on sample C, which is from Yos brand. Moving on to the consumer questionnaire survey, where most of our panelists is below 25 years old, which consists of a little over 50% of them being female and the other 45.2% are male. As shown in the pie chart, 83.3% of our panelists consumes coconut jam occasionally, with the remaining percentage either consumes it daily or do not consume coconut jam at all. Apart from that, more than half of our panelists consumes jam products occasionally, with 14.3% consumes jam products daily and 9.5% does not consume it. Finally, 4.8% of the panelists like to eat coconut jam with biscuit, 7.1% eats it just like that, and most of them like to eat coconut jam with bread.
In conclusion, as stated in our objective, we want the panelists to actually have the distinction to determine the degree of acceptance of 3 different popular coconut jams in terms of sensory evaluation that are on hedonic scale.
The panelists actually preferred Gardenia, followed by Nona, and the last is the Yos brand. During the evaluation test, a problem arises from the panelists who do not understand the questions that we have given up to them, in which they have failed to follow the objective of the experiment by giving the same scores for all attributes in a certain coconut jam brand. Apart from that, we believe that the experiment was a success and we managed to determine the preferred brand of coconut jam, or the similar degree of acceptance of 3 different popular coconut jams by the consumers using a hedonic test. That's all from us. Thank you.